Innovation and customer focus, traditionally strong in Thermax, but which had taken a back seat during our difficult days, were given their due importance. Thanks to the hard and dedicated work of our senior team, who stayed with me through all those tough years, we turned around. In 2000 and 2001, we made an operational profit. Learning from our past experience, we decided to bring in proactive change when we were doing well. Taking help from a consulting company, we drew up an ambitious growth plan which also involved expanding our presence in select international markets. Our plan had been to reach 3,200 crores by 2010 with an EBIT of 15%. By 2007-8 itself, we crossed the 3,000 crore mark and achieved a revenue of 3,246 crores and a profit of 281 crores. Our share price that had been hammered down during the late 90s to 36 for a 10 rupee share had revived and touched 935 in 2005. In March 2006, we did a share split of 1:5 to bring in greater liquidity, and today our 2 rupee share is around 600. From our turnaround experience, there were 3 important learnings. First, the most difficult and yes, the most important change was changing the mindset and the culture of the company. It meant moving away from our comfort zone, stop blaming external circumstances for our poor performance, and assuming full responsibility. Second, most people, and I said this earlier, and let me add mostly men, find it difficult to ask for help. It is imperative for an organization to realize that seeking help from any source is not an indication of weakness, but of maturity and strength. Third, intellect and skills can be hired by a leader, but wisdom must come from the leader. In a lighter vein, intellect tells us that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom tells us not to mix it in a fruit salad. Once the company turned around and entered a high growth phase, I decided to focus on succession planning. When my husband suddenly died, our company and I went through deep trauma. Based on that experience, I wanted a smooth, well-planned succession. At the age of 61, I decided to step down, and the board appointed my daughter as the chairperson. She is a chemical engineer and has been with the company as a trainee engineer from the time she completed her studies. Apart from her competence, she has imbibed the family values. Now she has been at the helm for about 5 years, and the company is doing extremely well under her leadership. After my retirement, we've had yet another smooth, successful succession. When our managing director, Prakash Kulkarni, retired in 2007, Mr. Unni Krishnan was appointed from within as the new MD and CEO. Succession planning seems a very easy process, but it means coming to terms with the fact that the world can go on without you. In my case, it was relatively easier because I was passing on the baton to my daughter. Again, I feel that most men find it very difficult to step down because they identify their entire life with their work. Since the last 4 years, Thermax has established a foundation which I chair. We have decided to put aside 1% of our profit for social causes and focus on education for the underprivileged. I believe that education can bridge the inequity gap in our country. There are many CEOs who only focus on the top and the bottom lines and do not feel responsible for their community. It is true that the first responsibility of a corporate is to be viable and make profits. In the recent past, when my own company, Thermax, was not doing well, all our energies were turned inwards for survival, and corporate social responsibility took a back seat. However, first doing well financially is necessary, but not sufficient. We have to reach out to the larger community in which we operate. In reaching out to the marginalized and needy is needed, speaking up is equally important. If corporates ask themselves searching questions, cross the threshold of complacency, and begin to reach out to the communities through their corporate social responsibility initiatives, then they should also be prepared to raise questions of accountability, especially directed towards government, which has a major presence in social sectors like education and health. Why aren't we seeing the kind of development which every region of India needs, and why don't the financial allocations reach the people for whom they are intended? Just as our shareholders demand governance, can we as citizens demand accountability from the government? Can I continue? The years have also taught me the critical importance of standing up for one's conviction and speaking up on behalf of the less fortunate. Let me speak of a personal experience. When there was state-sponsored violence against minority Muslims in Gujarat, as the CII chairperson of Western region, I spoke up against the grave injustice and was one of the few corporate heads who criticized the government role in this shameful event. I was warned that my family and my business could be affected. My daughter Meher felt that by speaking up, I was being selfish and unmindful of the negative consequences. I explained at great length why I chose to voice my concern, as secularism is a very important value for me, and that I was willing to pay any price for it. My daughter understood and henceforth fully supported my stand. Concluding, I would like to share some of the lessons life has taught me. However fulfilling, challenging, and rewarding work may be, it is only a part of our total being, and we have many other roles to perform. Professionals climbing the corporate ladder have to find external battles against peer competition and work their way up. But for people like me who had come up due to family ownership, the battles were internal, battles of self-doubt and legitimizing family inheritance. Unless these battles are resolved, a lot of energy is locked up. It is entirely my choice whether to focus on my limitations and keep feeling small and inadequate, or to build on my strength. We cannot control external circumstances, but we have the freedom to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. And it is in our power to learn from personal tragedy and grow. I'm learning to internalize these wise words I came across some time ago. Our stay on this earth is short, our role dispensable, and our impact inconsequential. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anu. Insightful as always. We have some time for questions. I have one. I'll let you rest your voice because I have one for Shobana. Value of alternate Indian medicines, therapies are being felt by people. Why not hospitals like Apollo promote/encourage them?
Actually, that's something that we've been focusing on for many years now. Most of our nurses are trained in pranic healing. We've just signed up a MOU with Kotakal, and a few years ago, when my father, broke a rib, he had to go for an important conference, and his doctor said, "There's nothing you can do." There's a small town in Andhra, close on the way to Tirupati, called Puttur, and they have these bone setters. And he actually used them. He was cured in 48 hours. For the last 3 years, we've worked with them. We've done research. And the only thing that we think that we can add to this equation is that we have to study it, write down the protocol scientifically, because, the way it's being done, sometimes, one solution can't fit all. So it has to be documented extremely scientifically, and we spend a lot of money on research. And I think the next big thing of integrative medicine, whereas all these years we concentrated on great outcomes, Western standard outcomes, places like Kerala are attracting medical tourism for just these things, and hospitals like ours will be failing in our duty unless we integrate them. So, short answer is yes, it's happening already.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Nandita, I got a question for you. I probably know the answer, but I'd like the rest of them to know the answer.
Oh, really?
Many of your contemporaries went on to break into dance in Bollywood. Were there any specific instances in your life that sort of held you back and said, this is not the way for me? This is the way I want to do things.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with singing and dancing. I love doing that actually. But anything that I feel is really not meant to be part of the story that sort of defies your basic intelligence and you wonder that why has this happened. It could be a dialogue. It could be a regressive dialogue that one has to mouth. It could be a dance with, 50 other people doing exactly the same movement, and you wonder why in the middle of the jungle or, wherever it may be, why are you suddenly dancing? How do they know what step I'm going to do and they're going to do the exact one? So anything that kind of defies your basic sensibilities is something that I would stay away from. I have done a bit of singing and dancing, so to say, in films, but they've been more situational. They've sort of taken the story further. So I think each one to their own, just as I don't ask them, why do you sing and dance? And they sing and dance, and I think it's great fun. And I don't like singing and dancing in films, and that's how I want to be.
Okay. Be that way.
Thank you.
Shobana, question for you. Compared to your competitors, Apollo strategy has been more of organic growth compared to them. Now, do you see Apollo going the inorganic way, and what leadership challenges do you see there?
I somehow knew I'd get asked this sometime in the last. I think it's very important for us to understand that many of these deals that we saw, we actually walked away from it. It could be, one is that for us capital is more precious, and in our case then you can read that as a constraint. The second thing is that it's not organic really, because if you see that outcomes, Apollo's treated 2 New York cities. I mean, it's huge in terms of the outcomes and outputs, and probably 100 beds in an Apollo turns over way more than others do, because that's where we judge ourselves. In the future, we've moved towards, hospitals are one part of it, but really, when you're talking about, we have 1,000 pharmacies, but in terms of IT, we're actually creating networks that the whole country can use. We've created an insurance company that is defining how health insurance should be. So we're actually going out there, because we've moved our bar from, or our frame of reference from treating people to creating access and actually touching lives. So it could be, at this stage, it might look as organic, but I think that going forward in the future, you don't judge a company in 6 years, but you judge them in 20 or 30 years.
Absolutely.
And then the game will really start to play.
Okay.
But we're very aggressive.
No, I didn't mean it that you're not aggressive. It's just that you're taking a different route for aggression.
No, many people feel that.
Yeah.
So, and it's something that I'm the least, diplomatic out of the rest of the family, so I'll probably go home and get kicked. Lucky this is not a public forum, but I definitely
You didn't know
feel
this is being televised.
Yeah, right. They don't watch the channel. But very often I really think that some of the things we do are too slow. And I tell them probably because they still live in Chennai.
Well, we're very fast in Coimbatore, just so you know.
You all come from Andhra.
Yeah. Well, not all of us. Anu, now, it's to you. You are one of the most vocal critics of the Modi regime, and rightfully so. But do you see a value disconnect of making a large investment in Baroda?
Large investment in?
Baroda.
We have invested in Baroda And I remember my managing director coming to me before investing and